Hi boys and girls, it's me Butch. My name is Terry David Silvercloud. I'm not native, just sounds that way. I'm 79 years old. I'll be 80 in October. Today is Thursday, the 11th of July, 2024, about 8 p.m. or so down in English Bay in Vancouver. And because of my health, I could drop dead any time. I come down to the beach to enjoy the sunsets here, and I try to make videos to teach you stuff and entertain you or whatever to keep busy. So here I am, Socrates at the beach. Why Socrates? Well, I'm godless. I define God as being a metaphor for sum of all reality, all at once, all of the time. So I'm not really godless, but I have to have a definition of God because I'm a scientist. So God to me is just everything, all at once, all the time, always was, not a being. God being everything right now, there's about 7 billion people on the planet. So God is having 7 billion experiences per second as we speak. 2 people are being born every second. So there was probably a dozen orgasms went into those 2 people. So God is having at least a dozen orgasms a second. So you're getting my drift. God is everything. So it starts getting silly having gods. It just but a lot of people, when you ask them where reality came from, they'll say, oh, well, God created it, because they don't have to prove it. But then if you ask them where God came from, they weren't ready for that question, because that just complicates the entire issue. So Bush doesn't believe in gods. God is just a metaphor for reality. So how did this reality come to be? Well, it just always was. But in science, we want to explain, like, well, if you started, like, reverse engineered, how would it start? So we have what's called Big Bang Theory, and for most scientists, it's a mental thing, not an actual thing. There never was a Big Bang, but if there was, it would be a way of explaining how you progress from one substance to everything you're seeing all around you. One way, you just saw me do it, I turned this way, or I could have turned this way. That's a big deal in physics. So if you can just get individual bits to either turn one way or the other way, now you've created a duality, and this is all not easily explainable, but it becomes much, much easier. The big deal is trying to get, if a universe was coast to coast, one big liquid or gas or whatever it was, how do you get the individual whatever? You have to assume there's some sort of individual parts to it. It just doesn't make sense otherwise. So assuming there are these individual parts, and they all came to rest equidistantly apart, they would form a lattice that seemed like cubes. But in terms of force, the center of the force would be the center of the cubes. And when you're dealing with forces, you have to get to infinite numbers or irrational numbers. And so we need a sphere. And a sphere can be said to have one single surface. It's no matter where you go, you'll always end up back in the same place sooner or later. The problem now is we're trying to have a cube and a sphere compete with each other. So the first thing we got to do is make them have the same volume. That's easy. So now we have a sphere, which we've made a little bit more cuboid, and we're packing them together. The problem with all of this is there's just no equal distribution of pressures, and no matter how small these things are, they're going to want to wiggle-waggle in a really big space. And it won't really matter until they get to atomic size. We have to assume that whatever it is does set the speed of light. It is the speed of light, and if it moves its own diameter by even a fraction, really, but by its own diameter at least once, or it rotates at least once, that would be a better definition. If it could rotate about its pole 360 degrees, move that distance, then that would be the speed of light. but it could do it faster than you get waves. So we'd have to come up with a relationship between the circumference, the diameter, and all that. But the point of it is we could start measuring speed of light from the very tiniest thing, and we really have no choice because that's what's really happening. We define the speed of light otherwise from larger things. But in the nitty-gritty, there's a point where something which has to have poles because it has to be able to rotate in order to transmit energy. For something to transmit energy, it either has to go bump in the night or it could just simply roll. And rolling is much, much easier because then you can have waves and waves can go all over the place. In fact, if you have a ball in the center and it starts rotating, it's going to, any other ball that's touching it, which could be as many as 6, 7, 8, 9, I think you could squeeze as many as 12 balls on the surface. Each one of those would have to respond. I haven't done that math, it just came into my head. But you picture a ball surrounded on all sides by other balls of equal size to itself. If the center ball rolled, then all the other balls around it would have to roll in some particular direction around it because of that roll. If all of those balls around it rolled as one unit, now you've got a bigger wave, and if they combined even other bigger waves, you're getting serious motion going on there. And all of this is happening within the framework of the nothingness that is the oneness. So empty space is not nothingness. It just isn't. Let's get to zero now. What about zero? Zero is a number which is very handy in computations. It works very well in quantum physics. In quantum physics, you're either here or there, and the time in between is zero because it ain't there, and that's all very handy. It's really super handy. In relativity, there's problems because relativity doesn't like negative numbers. And also on very large scales, relativity and quantum physics start having some serious problems because relativity really likes dealing with straight line vectors, and quantum physics has zero problems with spheres and curves and stuff like that. May have some problems, but not the way relativity does. So it seems clear that waves are telling us what's going on, but it hasn't explained gravity yet. So, because I don't want this video to go on forever and ever, I don't know if I covered all the ground I wanted to, but I'm going to squeeze this in. The big camps out there where the money is going is to try and quantify gravity. Before that, people would talk about unified field theory. But now they like the word quantum gravity, and a theory which is a really good theory, which is not popular now, is string theory. And the reason for that is that to do the math requires, I think, 26 separate measurements or dimensions. They call them dimensions, but a dimension is a measurement. A lot of people have recognized, and many people haven't recognized, that quantum physics agrees a lot with string theory. And what happened is those dimensions or measurements got wrapped up in Schrodinger's equations, because in order to describe a wave, Schrodinger wrote equations where he could incorporate motion around several poles of a sphere, the north-south pole, plus the horizontal poles, and give them values and turn them all into one basic squiggle you can put on the board, and then you work it out later. That's the beauty of these kind of maths. You just incorporate a bunch of stuff into one little equation and hope it doesn't fall apart anywhere, and if it's still there in the end, then you do the numbers. Where am I going with this? So zero, that's where I was going to go, and then I'll wrap it up. I'm not going to go on too long. Zero came into Western culture in 1542 when Robert Record wrote the book. Robert Record wrote the book on mathematics and was not afraid of being burned alive at the stake because the Reformation was well underway. I've heard stories on the internet mostly that the Catholic Church banned the number zero. If they did, I can't find any record of it. It's just sort of hearsay that I can't find a record of. But what the Roman Catholic Church did not like were the Knights Templars, and the Knights Templars used the number system 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the one that you use today. That's what they use, and it came from an area of India. Let's just say it came from India. I'm not sharp enough to tell you exactly, but anyhow, it came from the Far East, and the Knights Templar, who were bankers, used it in their banknotes, and they were well aware of it. And the Roman Catholic Church, of course, killed off the Knights Templar in 1314, March 19th. The Grand Master was roasted alive on March 19th, 1314. The Templars, the ones they could find, were all arrested on Friday, October the 13th, 1307, when Philip IV of France and his puppet pope, well, the Pope didn't know about it yet, but Philip told him later, arrested all the Knights Templar, which is where Friday the 13th comes from, back in 1307. And that was the end of the Knights Templar. Also, their treasure vanished. And I'm not sure where I'm going with all that. Oh, the church, even though the church, I can't find any record of the church banning the number zero, they would have banned the use of the Templar numbers until they were kicked out of England. And then Robert Record wrote the book on math, and he called zero cipher, Cipher, and it was the first time mathematicians really had a chance to make use of this number, and soon discovered all kinds of fantastic uses for it. And today you think, well, of course, but it just seems so obvious now, but people were very superstitious of the concept of the idea of nothingness, I guess. And so zero representing nothingness was just, I don't know, people were very superstitious then. That's all I can tell you. I don't know. I don't know if I covered what I wanted to cover. I wanted to tell you that the big arguments out there are not solved. And Butch believes in bubble theory, that is, that if the universe could all settle down, like freeze over, and each individual particle was equidistant apart, they would be cube-shaped, or they would be, I have a fan out there. They would be cube-shaped, but have the force of a sphere. Oh, good, I didn't lose track. But I am going to wrap it up because I've gone on and on and on. And when people stop to say hi because I'm getting old and senile or something, I lose track of what the hell was I talking about. And I'm getting a cramp in my leg. Lovely, old age. So it's going to be bye-bye from Butch. I don't know if I cover what I want or not. I'm going to keep talking about this and other stuff, and maybe you'll learn something, maybe you won't, maybe I'm entertaining, maybe I'm not. I don't know. I'm doing it anyway. So I'm going to reach down behind here, put on my sexy voice. Where are you? You're down there. I'm going to push the button.